Penguin Random House Audio presents Slaying You by Michelle Gagnon. Read for you by Jaime Lamchick and Khaya Fraites. To Stephanie Roston. What the hell is going on? Imogen Heap. Prologue. Odds against tomorrow. Las Vegas, Nevada. I've heard that most people go through life without encountering a serial killer. In fact, the vast majority make it through without ever experiencing serious peril. They just saunter along, whistling jauntily to themselves, at least that's how I imagine them, and then after a relatively peaceful spin atop this green and blue marble, they expire in their sleep, a gentle smile on their lips. Gee, I wonder what that's like. Because here I am, halfway through my 24th year, about to confront my second murderous psychopath. Wait, no, this is the third. When you forget one, that's a bad sign. At this point, maybe I should just acknowledge that a nice, normal life was never in the cards for me. Chasing down a freak? Yawn. Must be Tuesday. Some combination of fate and DNA resulted in me being launched into the void like a pinball, destined to bang into all the dark shit out there. You ready, Toots? Dot asks in a low voice. I nod, tightening my grip on the gun. She holds up a finger and counts. 1, 2. On 3, she throws open the door and I charge out.
Chapter 1. Crossfire. 4 days earlier in Penrose, Colorado. Wright leaned over his shoulder, peering out at the road ahead. Shit, man, can you even see? Peterson didn't answer, intent on driving. The prison bus was a beast in the best of times, and this was definitely not that. The wiper blades were basically just moving ash back and forth, smearing it across the windshield in dark streaks. Visibility was down to a few yards, the entire sky blotted out by smoke. It wasn't much past noon, but looked like twilight. The only sign of daylight, an apocryphal red sun. It's like driving into hell, Peterson thought, repressing a shudder. Wright wasn't helping. Every few minutes he'd let out a low whistle and say something stupid like, "You sure this road is still clear?" No, dumbass, Peterson wanted to snap. I'm not sure of anything anymore. The road had been clear when they'd left the Supermax an hour earlier, but how in the hell was he supposed to know now? Cell service was down, and they were supposed to stay off the radio unless there was an emergency. It hadn't been like this when he drove to work that morning. The only sign of a wildfire then had been a slight tickle in the back of his throat as he belted out Jolene, evoking memories of camping with his dad when he was a kid. Aside from what looked like morning fog, you'd barely have known a fire was raging nearby. Well, it sure as shit looked like it now. On this section of Route 24, you usually could see for miles, low scrub grass, covered hills stretched into the distance. But now, all that dry brush was aflame. The wildfire was 80 acres wide and growing by the minute. The smoke to his right was tinted red, and he would have sworn heat was coming off it. Should I call in? Their bus had already been diverted once because I-25 was overtaken. If this road had become impassable too, wouldn't someone have let them know? Peterson swore under his breath. It was the warden's fault for waiting so long to start the evacuation. Granted, shifting more than 300 of the nation's most dangerous criminals to different prisons probably wasn't easy. He'd heard rumors that Colorado State Penitentiary had flat-out refused to take any, claiming they didn't have beds to spare. Which was why he was driving these assholes to Sterling Correctional instead, nearly 250 goddamn miles away. And at the rate they were going, they wouldn't get there until nightfall. Peterson really didn't want to be dealing with these creeps after dark. He was a year into this gig and already hated it. Lifers, like Wright, got off on the power trips, but that wasn't his scene. If it weren't for the benefits, he would have left after a month. Now, he was just waiting on a transfer to minimum security. At least there, you were dealing with human beings, A glance in the rearview mirror showed 24 figures in dusky orange scrubs, each shackled in a bus seat. As the last guy hired, Peterson had been assigned the worst of the worst. Cartel bosses, serial killers, even a couple of goddamn terrorists. They were, to a man, eerily silent and expressionless. He wondered if that meant they were as freaked out as he was. Either that, or they were plotting something. One of them was a notorious escape artist, and when he'd gotten the assignment, Peterson's first thought had been, shit, I bet we end up getting mowed down by a bunch of narcos with AR-15s. But even they wouldn't be crazy enough to drive through this, he thought grimly. Shit! Wright cried out. Reflexively, Peterson hit the brakes. The rear of the bus skidded as the tires fought for purchase. Wright was thrown against the wire gate, separating them from the prisoners, his yelp matched by shouting from the back. There were a scary few seconds as Peterson rode the tipping point. He could feel the back of the bus wanting to cant sideways, dragging them with it. But the beast righted herself at the last moment, and he heaved a sigh of relief. It was short-lived. Holy Christ! Wright breathed, leaning forward. The fire had jumped the highway, leaving Peterson staring at the solid wall of flames. It looked how he'd always pictured the Red Sea when Moses parted it. Red stretching up on either side and smoke swirling in between. Tendrils started to leach into the bus despite the closed windows, and a few of the assholes in the back started coughing. One swore in Spanish, yelling for them to turn around. Within seconds, the cry was taken up by the others, a cacophony of men screaming for him to head forward or back. Just go, you bastard! Drive, asshole! Along with a lot of choice comments about his mother. Peterson, Wright said from his shoulder. Hate to say it, but they're right, man. I think we gotta go back. Peterson realized he'd frozen. He shook it off and checked the side mirror. It didn't look much better behind them, but at least that section of road was familiar. He cautiously shifted into reverse and slowly started to back up the beast. Route 24 was just 2 lanes, barely deserving of the title state highway. He cursed under his breath. This was going to require a 20-point turn. He was halfway through it, the bus perpendicular to the road and straddling both lanes, when Wright shouted again. Higher pitch this time. Really, more of a scream. Intent on making sure the unwieldy bus didn't slide into the trench lining the berm, Peterson chanced a look where Wright was pointing. A semi was coming straight at them, screaming out of the smoke at 100 miles an hour. Through the windshield, Peterson could see 2 men in cowboy hats, their eyes wide and mouths open. The truck braked hard, stuttering into a skid. The back swung out as it started to jackknife, but it was too late. There wasn't even time to pray before the semi slammed into them.
Chapter 2. 2 Smart People. 40 miles outside Las Vegas, Nevada. I shuffled through the bills in my hand again, then said, I actually gave you 100. The mini-mart cashier narrowed his eyes. You sure about that? I nodded earnestly, trying my darndest to look truthful. He hesitated, then lifted the drawer and chuckled. Well, hell, sorry, miss, you wouldn't believe how many folks try to pull a fast one. Really? I ruefully shook my head, reflexively mirroring him. Terrible. Who would do such a thing? Me, I thought. Up until a couple months ago, most definitely me. But I'd finally put my life as a grifter firmly behind me, once and for all. Hell, these past few months I'd practically become a poster child for law-abiding citizens. Here you go. Change for 100. As the cashier passed me a stack of bills, I caught movement in the security mirror mounted behind him. Glancing at it, I saw a teenager slip a bag of chips in his jacket and tisked internally. Sloppy. Kid was definitely going to get caught. The cashier's eyes started to drift toward him. Impulsively, I tucked a 5 in the tip jar to distract him. That's for you. He threw me a puzzled look. Well, thanks. Just so you know, that's mainly for when I get someone coffee. I shrugged. Good karma. Pay it forward, right? As I left,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?